What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Murph. Today, we're diving into Lord of the Rings, Heroes of Middle-earth, and going to talk about the current farming meta in, between all the campaigns and the store farms, what you should prioritize, and why. I've been meaning to put this out for a while now, but I never got around to it, so now here is my current updated farm guide. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about a few things first. Number one, we have to talk about the overall kind of tier list of importance when it comes to each individual faction. Now, when we're talking about factions, excuse me while I inconspicuously lift my chair up. When we talk about factions, the important thing here is we're talking about factions themselves, not just any tag. And what am I talking about when I talk about that? So if we go into the collection here, for instance, if we go to, let's say, what's a good example? We'll go to get out of here. We'll go to one of our Isengard folks, right? Like Dunhar. Now with Dunhar is Isengard. He's a healer. He's an orc. He's shadow, and he uses two-handed swords. So these are all tags or traits of him, right? So if we go back to our actual character thing here, we have filters where we can filter through these different tags. We'll go with tags for them, right? So with there being tags, there's different tags, and the way I look at it is there's a few different types of ways that you can look at how tags are classified, right? So there's their actual race. So what race are they? What kind of creature are they? He's an orc, right? So that's a race. That's not a faction. He's shadow. That's his trait or his alignment, I guess you could say. His alignment, right? There's light, shadow, and I'm sure maybe since it's CG, we'll have an unaligned at some point. You have like what type of weapon they use. That's a tag, but that is not a faction. You have their role, which is a healer. That is not a faction. His faction is Isengard. So if you go through and look at some of these characters, for instance, it's kind of hard to parse through what some of their roles are. So if we go over to like the Great Goblin, he's Misty Mountain, but he's a goblin. And if you look over at let's see, where are you at? Is Uzan one of them? No, Uzan's Mordor, I believe. Here we go, Bolg. We pulled Bolga. Bolg is also the Misty Mountain faction, but he's an orc. And it gets weird because I kind of view them as two separate factions. One's Misty Mountain Goblins, one's Misty Mountain Orcs. Anyways, whatever, it doesn't matter. When we talk about the factions, we've got a whole list of factions, and I'm going to put them right up here in the video so you guys can see what I'm looking at. But what we're looking at is we've got, in no specific order, we've got Dunland, we've got Dwarf, Elf, Goblin. Those are all races. We're not counting them as factions. So we got Dunland, we've got Gondor, we've got Haradrim, we've got Isengard, we've got sort of Misty Mountain, but for the purpose of this video, I've divided it between Misty Mountain Orcs and Misty Mountain Goblins. We've got Mordor. We've also got Rangers. We've got Ringbearer, interestingly enough. And we've got Rivendell, Road to Rivendell, Rohan, and Thorn's Company. And that is it. So that is all of our factions so far. Now, how do we parse through what is important for these factions? I've gone through and kind of prioritize this tier list of factions themselves into the first tier, like S tier. That's going to be your early game prioritization. So like if you're free to play in the game, you want to focus on Isengard and you want to focus on Rohan. These are your first two early game prio focuses for both your light and your shadow campaigns. Why? Because both of them have 5 characters. Rohan, you're only really going to use 3 of the characters, and then you're going to use, Aragorn and someone else, whether it's Pippin or Naramiri for a healer or whatever other route you decide to go. You're going to kind of run the Rohan 3. I'm talking and I'm not showing shit right now. So you pull up Eomer, Lady Eowyn, Eothane. This is your core for the Rohan team. And once you're outside of them, you're not really going to use these two. Wilflin and Ealdred are just they're too deep in the game to farm, and at that point, it's not really worth pursuing Rohan anymore. For Isengard is kind of the same. You're gonna automatically unlock Ugluk and Malhur. You're gonna want to farm out Dunhar, and then when it comes to Azak and Morza, neither they're kind of both plug and play. Typically, people are using Gaz Ironhide, the troll out of the guild farm, um, along with them, and then maybe one of these two as your fifth, or Nuraz or someone else. But regardless, Isengard, Rohan are your top two early game prios, and they're at the top of our tier list for who to farm uh, first. Now, after that, the way I construct these tier lists is that, like, if we've got dudes in S tier and we've got dudes in A tier right underneath it, they're kind of interchangeable depending on where you are in the game and what your personal prioritization are. So the next two teams we have on our list in the A tier are going to be Rivendell and Ranger. Now they're both light side teams. So obviously, if you focus on Isengard early in the game, you need to really, really be careful with your light side uh, crystals and the rest of the shit that goes in your light side teams, because you're going to kind of like overinvest into one side rather than the other. You don't want to neglect your shadow team. But at the end of the day, these two teams have places in the current meta because Elrond is coming out soon. That is a Rivendell character. So in order for Rivendell to really work, you need to have Elrond as a legendary character. And if you farm out your Rivendell characters, in the game right now, we have 3 currently in game. We'll pull it up real quick. We've got Arwen, Elrohir, and Lomion. Now, Arwen is not currently free-to-play farmable. You would have had to have unlocked her via her marquee event just last week. And Elodin's marquee event is coming out in the near future. That will give us 4 Rivendell characters, and Elrond would be our 5th. So, Rivendell is A tier because it's first legendary in the game, and also these 2 characters here are required to farm in order to unlock Elrond, or at least they're part of the group that you have to farm for him. And eventually, Arwen will become free to play farmable, and you will be able to farm her in order to unlock Elrond. Now, after Rivendell, I've kind of mentioned this in another video, but the way I see the free to play meta going, our entire A tier here is. Everything is in the A tier here because this is kind of your mid-game focus or your mid-game shift. So you've been building and farming out Rohan and Isengard, and now you're shifting to the mid-game a bit. You want to kind of start pivoting a little bit of that investment into these teams here. And if you cannot unlock Elrond right now, what I'm doing and what I think the natural move to do as a free-to-play player is to take your Strider that you've already built for your free-to-play Rohan team. You know, Strider is not Rohan, but you've been using him with them. And then if you have been farming the requirements for Elrond, you likely have Elrohir already farmed and built. You're going to have Elodin unlocked the marquee, and you're going to want to build him. All you have to do at that point is you have to just farm out Miri and Halbarad, and as you'll see soon enough, they're both very available characters early on in the game. So, oops, did not mean to open up the guild chat. So I think it's a natural pivot if you can unlock Elrond to move over to Rangers once Elrond releases. So that is why the Rangers are right up here on the same tier with Rivendell. And we've got Halbarad, Miri, Elrohir, and Strider, and soon to be Elodin coming out in the next couple weeks at some point. Now, after this tier, we kind of move down into our B tier, which is our late game priority / kind of luxury farm. So like if you've been wailing the fuck out and you already have all these characters or you don't really care, these are kind of the next up teams, and the only reason they're really here is because like they either serve a purpose right now that is irrelevant, or they don't serve a purpose yet, but they will. So these 2 teams, in my opinion, are the Haradrim. Now there's only 3 of them in the game as of right now, but it has been data mined that they're going to be required for the Witch King Legendary event, and it should be the exact same requirements as Elrond because this is CG. We're copy pasting Legendary event requirements. 5-star characters unlock a 5-star Legendary, and then 6 stars unlock 6, 7, so on. You get it. But Haradrim has been confirmed. Well, let me take it back. They have not been confirmed. They've been data mined. And just because they've been data mined, we don't know when it's going to come out yet. There's been nothing official announced. At the very minimum, they will not be out this month because this month is about elves. I could see potentially July, like late July maybe, or August time frame, them kind of shifting into that Witch King Legendary event at some point in the back end of July into August. So right now, there's only 3 Haradrim characters in the game. There's no reason to really go out of your way to farm them. And, you know, unless you get caught up with your Elrond requirements and you're just kind of looking for something to farm, and then I would maybe start farming the Haradrim. But ultimately, there are more important things to farm right now. if you're at a point where you're nowhere near the Elrond meta and you are planning that kind of light side pivot from Rohan into the Haradrim, or sorry, the Rohan into the Rangers, I think it's actually not a bad idea for you to start taking your shadow resources, your shadow crystals and whatnot, and start pivoting that into the Haradrim just a little bit here, because that way you can kind of get the jump on it. You know, if you've already cleared your shadow campaign, and you don't really need to build your Isengard team that much. Like, if you're not using Isengard in Arena and you don't have any reason to invest in them, why not invest those materials into the Haradrim? So after the Haradrim, and the rest of our kind of B tier or C tier, whatever you want to call it, is going to be Road to Rivendell. Now, Road to Rivendell is not a great team. It's not a good team. This isn't me endorsing you to farm it. I'm just saying, from a perspective of us having a full team available in game and having a purpose or a reason to farm a team, there's a reason. It's just not a very good reason. And the reason is, in order to unlock Sam, you get him for free just by going through his adventure campaign. But in order to get further stars on him and farm him out, you have to get all the rest of your Road to Rivendell characters to 4 stars and 5 stars, 6 stars, and so on, etc., in order to unlock the higher tiers of his adventure. And the problem is, he's not a good character. Like, he's not bad, he's not good, he just is, right? And so by that logic, like, yeah, Road to Rivendell has a purpose. If you farm them, you get to build up your Sam, who's kind of a pseudo-legendary in the game right now. But unlike building the Haradrim for a data mine legendary, or farming out your elves to get Elrond, Sam just isn't worth what, I believe Elrond's going to be worth, and what I believe the Witch King's going to be worth eventually. So they fall here. Now, the rest of the teams on this tier list, there's 2 more tiers to go to. The next tier down is kind of our C/D tier of teams, and this is going to be it's 2 tags, but 3 teams. The first tag is going to be Misty Mountain. It's going to be kind of the Misty Mountain orcs and goblins are all lumped here together. The goblins being the Great Goblin, Golbers, Grimpa, and Chief Kraska, and Orphers. There are 5 characters, so technically, if there's one team in this tier, well, I guess 2 of these teams in this tier could kind of swing up to the next tier, maybe. It would be the Misty Mountain Goblins, because they have a full team. Now, the Great Goblin did get nerfed just before the actual global launch date, so the team isn't as strong as it was before, and the Great Goblin currently is not free-to-play farmable. So that kind of throws a couple wrenches into that, and on top of that, too, there's just they don't serve any purpose in the current game. Maybe when the Moria raid comes out, the Misty Mountain Goblins get bonuses during the raid. That's a possibility. If they decide to start putting faction-specific bonuses for their raid, I could very well see the Misty Mountain Goblins having that bonus, considering, the Great Goblin himself didn't reside in Moria, but Moria is in the Misty Mountains, and that would be relatively in their realm. Granted, the Misty Mountains are long, gigantic range of mountains in Middle-earth. But yeah, Misty Mountain Goblins is down in this rank, as well as the Misty Mountain Orcs. Now, Bolg and his team with Groover the Brute and Tordok, kind of the way I see it, is very, very interesting. And I say that because Bolg, from the AI using him, and Nuraz is the other one, actually. So, right? Yeah. There's 9 Misty Mountain characters. I forgot that the troll is one. So he doesn't really have a race or a faction tag. He's just kind of his own Misty Mountain character you plug and play, I guess. But Bolg, Nuraz, and Tordok kind of form their own orc Misty Mountain team, and I do think it's interesting in the sense that in the future they could potentially be used to unlock, maybe get Azog the Defiler, who's Bolg's father canonically. He's the one that Thorin and them slew at Moria. In the movies, Azog stuck around though, but in the books it was Bolg that took Azog's spot. I could see that being potential, but right now there's only 3 characters in the game, and we have no data mined reasons to farm them. We have no confirmed by the developers reasons to farm them. They're just in the game, and I think that he seems like a very interesting, great character, and I think once he actually gets a team around him and a reason to farm him, he's gonna be good. I really do. Um, like this is just an advantage machine. Like they're basically just throwing. This seems almost kind of like First Order. Um, in this from Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes in the sense that they're just kind of throwing like automatic crit on characters. But again, um, this along with the next thing we're going to kind of talk about, the reason they're here is really just because like I think they got a lot of potential. There's just no reason to farm them. And this team is the Mordor team. Now, outside of Gaz Ironhide, who is like the greatest one of the greatest plug and play characters in the game right now, considering he's very early farmable. He's in the guild campaign, which means he is incredibly, incredibly farmable. And he's just incredibly strong as a character as well. The rest of the team, Shagrat, you can farm out of the arena store. The rest of the characters you can farm from various campaign spots from the Light and Shadow campaigns. But the problem is, like, again, I think this team is probably good. I haven't used it yet. The problem is, like, they're not used for anything. So in order for you to pivot off of Isengard onto this team, I think you would need a reason for it because you've already put resources into Isengard. So why wouldn't you stay the course and stay with Isengard until you have a reason to pivot off of them? Like the Haradrim right now, we have a reason to pivot off of them. You can pivot off of them so you can unlock the Witch King eventually. These guys, they're just a team that's in the game. And I think as you hit like the very very end game and like you get to a point where you've sunk resources and leveled up all the other teams that I've listed already ahead, I think there's no problem with you going into the Misty Mountain characters or the Mordor characters. But as of right now, until we get a compelling reason to farm or build them, I'm avoiding them personally. That could change in 2 weeks. They could come out and say that the Misty Mountain or the Mordor team gets bonuses in the Moria raid, and then boom, we've got a reason. They're moving up the tier list. But that's why these tier lists, they always stay fluid. Every single content update, I'm updating these tier lists, and I will bring those updates to you as well. Now, our bottom tier is comprised of 4 different factions, and all these factions have 3 or less characters in them, so they're really not. There's not much to talk about. Dunland has 3 characters. They're in the game. There's nothing they're tied to, no legendary events, no marquee events, no raid bonuses, no nothing. Until we get a full team or a reason to farm them, I'm not touching them. Similar to that, we've also got Gondor in the game. We've got 2 random characters that don't exist in the books or the canon, in Rivendell and Sergeant Era. Again, no confirmed farming path, no legendary unlocks, no bonuses for the raid. There's no reason to farm them. Thorin's Company is the next tier. Same thing. We've got 2 characters, and I believe there were, 11 in Thorin's Company? 11 plus Bilbo? I forget how many. How many people were in Thorin's Company? There's Bifur Bofur Bomber, Fili Kili, Balin Dwalin, Ori Nori Oin Gloin, Thorin. That's 12. 12? Excuse me while I Google this real quick. So professional. 13 dwarves. Okay, we missed one of them. I don't know who we missed. Who did we miss? And what? Doesn't matter. So we've got 13 dwarves. We've got 3 dwarves in the game, but our 3rd dwarf is a made-up dwarf that doesn't have Thorin's Company tag. So this is Thorin's Company. We got Fili and Kili, his 2 cousins. And obviously, if they have the Thorin's Company tag and it's not an Erebor tag, I think it's safe to say we're going to get, if not all, at least 2 or 3 other of Thorin's Company, leading up to maybe an eventual Thorin Legendary Unlock, which would be fucking sick. I actually cannot wait for that if that's what they decided to do. But as of right now, again, nothing confirmed, no raid bonuses, nothing. And our final faction, which this is kind of a fun throw-in. I honestly had no idea this tag was even in the fucking game until I literally looked at this. We've got a Ring Bearer faction tag. Yeah, Ring Bearer. Ring Bearer. The weird thing is, one, Samwise Gamgee is a fucking Ring Bearer, and he got to go on the last, well, I don't know if it was the last ship, but one of the last ships to Valinor from Middle-earth because he was a fucking ring bearer. So we got 2 ring bearers. We got Bilbo, not in the game yet. I'm sure he probably gets a tag when he comes in the game. I'm a little mad that Sam's in the game, he doesn't have it. Maybe Gollum? / Smeagol? I don't know. Like, maybe he could get that. I mean, granted, like, I think ring bearer was kind of like a... Oh, actually... ring bearer... Elrond's gonna have ring bearer. Galadriel, Gandalf, they're all gonna have ring. Okay, so I was like thinking like close-minded, like the One Ring, the bearer of the One Ring. This is just gonna be for any of the like dwarves, elves, and men in the mythos that 4 rings, I think, and that's cool. What I'm curious about is why they have that tag in the game. Whatever, it doesn't matter. For another day. All right, we've spent how much time talking about, Jesus, 20 minutes talking about just the factions. All right, the rest of this video is going to be quick. So I hope you guys stuck around because you definitely clicked on the video to find what my tier list is. I gave you the faction tier list. We're just going to go with the actual farming tier list real quick. So let's go into the challenge store for our first farm. The challenge store, we have 2 options. We have Bolg and we have Halbarad. Due to the farming tier list, we're farming Halbarad first and Bolg later. Halbarad is going to be an S tier character. He's part of your Rangers team. Halbarad is phenomenal. It takes a lot of investment to get Halbarad worth using. It took, I think it was ability level 3 to 4 and gear 6 on my main before he was really good. But he is phenomenal. Bolg, I think, has a lot of potential as a character in a team, but right now, again, we just cannot farm him. Halbarad and the Rangers are going to be much more important in the near future. So, I don't think there's anything wrong with farming up Halbarad for unlock first and then pivoting to Bolg just for the unlock. But just know, like, this challenge currency takes a long time to farm up and build up. And, yeah, if you decide to pivot away from Halbarad and farm to Bolg, like, you're gonna have a bad time with your Halbarad. Your Halbarad's gonna fall behind. So maybe if you're avoiding Rangers and just going straight for like Rivendell, or you're avoiding Rangers staying with Rohan, maybe then like switch over to Bolg. But I think you just go hard into Halbarad. Our next farm is gonna be the arena store. Now we've got Eomer, Shagrat, and Golbers available in here, and we are farming Eomer. Now once Eomer is unlocked, I don't think there's anything wrong with you going over and unlocking Shagrat or unlocking Golbers. In fact, on this account, that's what I've done, is I've gone through and I've unlocked both Shagrat and Golbers, and now that I've had them all unlocked, for the sake of being able to invest in them slightly and be able to get a very well-rounded wide roster for the raids coming up, I can then just dump all my currency into Eomer and keep focusing on him. So that is what I'm doing. I'm focusing on Eomer now that I've unlocked all of them, and putting everything into Eomer, and then eventually I'll farm out Shagrat and Golbers unless I'm given a reason to farm them earlier. Now our last store farm is going to be the guild supply store, which is Miri and Wubate. Miri right now, to me, is higher up on the tier list with the Rangers than Wubate is for the Haradrim, so I'm farming out Miri first. Now, however, I will say, if you are going to miss the Elrond meta, this gets more cloudy, because if you miss the Elrond meta, you want to jump the Witch King meta. Provided the Witch King is the next legendary to come out. We don't know if it is yet. But if you decide to do that, if you're pivoting off of Elrond and into the Rangers, Miri is more important, because Miri helps you now, Wubate helps you later. But bear in mind, Wubate will be required at 5 stars to unlock a 5-star Witch King. So this is, oddly enough, this store, like these 2 characters, to me, depending on where you are in your priorities, could be interchangeable. I don't think there's anything wrong with you focusing Wubate first over Miri, especially if you have no plans of investing into Rangers. I would just go hard into Wubate. Again, like, the Rangers are like my bottom team in A tier, and Haradrim is my top team in B tier in terms of priority. So like, these 2 are right next to each other. Think about it that way. Now, next up, we've got our light side campaign. And with our light side campaign, the first 2 characters I would focus on are going to be in your chapter 1 and 2. Chapter 1 and node 1 here, this is the normal. Whoops, hard. There we go. Chapter 1-1 normal is going to be Eothane for your Rohan team. And we're going to have Chapter 2-1. We will have Mauhur in here for our Isengard team. So obviously these first two characters in here are going to be for your free-to-play teams between Light and Shadow. The next tier we're going to be looking at on here is going to be Lomion here at Chapter 2-9. And that is going to be for your Elrond unlock. You're going to be farming him for Elrond. And after that, we moved on to the next tier where we've got Haradrim, Road to Rivendell, and then kind of tertiary Isengard characters. So first things first, if we go all the way here to 1-9, we've got F2 sitting here for our Haradrim team for our eventual Witch King unlock. After that, we're going to have, where are we at? 3 Frodo Baggins in Chapter 3-1 for Road to Rivendell in case you have the luxury of being able to pursue Sam. And then after that, we're going to have Azak, which I don't have Chapter 4 unlocked for the hard campaign yet because I don't have the energy to keep putting into the campaign right now as I'm just farming out gear and hoarding gear. And none of these characters matter from here on. But you can farm out Azak for your Isengard team. After that, we've got Chapter 2. And this character is kind of back and forth for me. Nuraz, he's part of the Shagrat Mordor Orc lineup. However, he has a great troll summon that I personally use in my Shadow team in the campaigns. So that could pump him up a tier if this is who you choose to use as your 5th character in your free-to-play Shadow team. However, if you choose not to, he falls way down the list. After that, we've got Orfers, who's a Misty Mountain Goblin on Chapter 4. I can't even show him because we don't have Chapter 4 unlocked yet. Chapter 3, we've got Rockma, another Mordor Orc to pair up with Shagrat. And then Chapter 4-1, we've got Wilfwyn from Rohan. With that, again, Wilfwyn is one of the Rohan characters that we're really not going to be using with the team, so that's why they're this far down. After that, we've got just a bunch of crap in here. I mean, we've got Rivendell. Please, dear God, don't farm him yet. Like, there's no reason to farm him. There's 2 Gondor characters. Outside of him, we've got Kili in Chapter 5-1 for Thorin's Company. Again, I've already stated reasons why not to farm Thorin's Company yet. And then in Chapter 3, we've got Wex at 3-9 for Dunland. No reason to farm Dunland. We've got Alreda at Chapter 5-5. Again, there's no reason to farm Dunland right now. And finally, we've got our second to last campaign farm. We've got the Shadow campaign. And in Chapter 1, we're going to have both Lady Eowyn and Dunhar here. So Lady Eowyn is 1-5 and Dunhar is 1-1. They're going to be your top 2 farming priorities for free-to-play early in the game. Once you start heading towards the mid-game, hopefully you've unlocked Chapter 3-9 in the Shadow campaign because that is where you're going to find Leliel in order to farm for your Elrond unlock. That is more of your mid-game farm. Once you start pushing towards the end game, you're going to have Roble in Chapter 4-1. He's a Haradrim and required for your Witch King farm. You're also going to have Mary, Chapter 3-1 for your Road to Rivendell farm. And odds are Mary is probably going to be the slowest and last farm for you to start working on for Road to Rivendell. So just keep that in mind. And in addition to that, in Chapter 2, we've got Morza here. Morza could potentially be your 5th Shadow character. Run it with your Isengard team for your free-to-play team. If you choose to do that for your free-to-play, he obviously jumps up a tier or 2. And then after that, we've got Tordok in Chapter 5-1. He's a Misty Mountain Orc. He goes with Bolg's team. That's a very, very late game farm. There's no reason to farm that team right now. We've got Grimlers and Uzhan. Grimlers being here at Chapter 2-1, and then Uzhan being at Chapter 3-5 here. These are both Mordor Orcs to go with Shagrat and his team. Again, full team, but we just don't have a reason to farm them or use them right now. Chapter 4, we can't access right now, but Chief Kraska is going to be there. He is one of the Misty Mountain Goblins. In Chapter 2-9, we've got Sergeant Era. Again, Gondor. There's 2 characters, no reason to farm them. We've got Philly in Chapter 4-5. Thorin's Company, no reason to farm him. We've got Fro in Chapter 1-9. There's no reason to farm them yet. However, I do find them very interesting as a tank for late game. After that, we've got one last farm to talk about, and we're the fuck out of here. This is already becoming a long video for us. Typically don't hit the 30-minute mark here, but here we are. here in the guild campaign, God, this golem, it kills me. It like reminds me of the the golem from the game that just came out. It's so bad. But it's not bad. It's just it's goofy looking when you're used to the Lord of the Rings movies. You know, chapter 1 here in the guild campaign, we're gonna have Gaz Ironhide. Obviously, where's he at? 1-7. I don't believe I have any of these tags correct in here. I've got, yeah. We got Gaz Ironhide, and then we've got Uglik for our 2 guild campaigns. They're going to be kind of your first 2 priorities because that is for your free-to-play arena team and for your Isengard free-to-play shadow team. After that, I did not mean to do that. We've got Elroy here at chapter 3-1. You'll need him at 5 stars in order to unlock your Elrond, and he's also a linchpin for the ranger team if you decide to go that route. And then outside of that, in chapter 2, we've got Naramiri. Naramiri is going to also be a potential requirement for Elrond at 5 stars. So you'll want to start farming him if that's what you want to push for. After that, we don't have any Haradrim characters in here, so what you can focus on for your Road to Rivendell team, if you choose to do so, is... forgot where they're at. Pippin right here in chapter 1-5. Let me change that here real quick. 1-5. Okay, so Pippin you can do in chapter 1-5, and then you can also focus on assist Grimpa, that is Edric. Where is Grimpa? Grimpa is chapter 2? Yeah? Yeah. Yep, okay, there we go. Grimpa is one of the Misty Mountain goblins, and you can farm him in chapter 2. He's like your second to last priority right now, and then we've also got Edric in chapter 1, who is Dunland and not worth farming. So there's not a lot to farm in the guild campaign, but there's a lot of space in here for them to add more characters too eventually. And I think this is probably going to be a hotspot for some marquee characters coming down the road. Anyways, this has gone on long enough, guys. What do you think about my tier list? Bear in mind, my tier list is based on priorities right now for you to build. This is going to be a work in progress. We'll come back every month or two and kind of revisit this and see where we're at. So make sure if you guys are watching this and it is not June of 2023, you guys go find the most up-to-date farming guide on my channel. Subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. Drop a comment down below. What are you currently working on? And until next time, stay safe. Love you. Bye.